How is it already time to start thinking about 2019 book releases? I mean, I know I'm kind of late. I'm doing this on the last day of the year and tomorrow is January, but my brain is still stuck thinking that it's time to read 2018 releases and not even to think about 2019 yet. But here we are. So today, this video is going to be my very most anticipated book releases of January, February, and March of 2019. I do 4 videos like this every year, 1 for each quarter, so this is only for the first quarter of 2019, and it's not even every book that I'm kind of anticipating from the quarter. There are others that I will probably mention in like an honorable mentions section or in the description down below that didn't quite make the cut for the big list here. But these are the books that I am most excited for, have been waiting for the longest, or are just noteworthy in some way. They're the ones that I am probably going to pre-order or buy or request that my library purchase, or if I am very brave, ask for review copies of. We'll see if that happens. So without further ado, here are my most anticipated releases of January, February, and March. There are 3 books that I'm looking forward to in January. The first of them is Alliance Rising by C.J. Cherryh and Jane S. Fancher. I had never heard of Fancher before 2018, and then I found out that she is married to C.J. Cherryh and has worked with her on many of her previous books, and it seems that she is now getting the co-author credit that she rightly deserves. So I'm hoping that this book is kind of a standalone because I am let's say very far behind at reading the Alliance Union universe novels. So a short summary is that Alliance Rising is about the great megastations of Alpha, Pell, and Cytine, and an incoming ship that may be connected to another mysterious ship called the Rights of Man under the command of the Earth Company. Something is going on with the megastations, and the true plans for the Rights of Man ship could change everything. Next is Dragon Pearl by Yoon Lee. This book is from the Rick Riordan Presents line, which I know many people are excited about. I was drawn to it because it has Yoon Lee's name on it, and I love his work passionately. And this appears to be his first middle grade space opera novel infused with Korean mythology. And it is about a 13-year-old girl named Min who comes from a long line of fox spirits. Min's older brother June is in the Space Forces, and when he disappears in search of the Dragon Pearl, Min runs away to find him and clear his name. So kind of maybe space fantasy, a blending of science fiction, fantasy, and mythology. I don't know, but I'm down for it. And lastly, in January, I am really looking forward to The Golden Tresses of the Dead by Alan Bradley. Now, I thought that this book, the 10th in the Flavia de Luce mystery series, would be the last one, but it seems that Bradley has stated recently in an interview that he might write this series indefinitely, as long as he still has ideas, so it probably won't be the last book given that. And I am excited. I will continue reading anything about Flavia that I can get my hands on for as long as possible. Now, I don't want to spoil any of the events of the previous 9 books, and there have certainly been twists and turns and shocks along the way, but this entire series is about a 12-year-old girl, Flavia, in 1950s England, who is obsessed with poisons, chemistry, and solving murders. And at this point, she has more officially teamed up with Dogger, her father's former valet and a World War II veteran, to investigate mysteries and murders. And the rapport between Flavia and Dogger is one of my favorite things about these books, so I will be very happy to read about more of that. Now moving on to February, another 3 books that I'm looking forward to, and the first one is Ann Leckie's first fantasy novel. Somewhere I think somebody told me that this book is based on a world that Leckie wrote short stories in, and I think I've read those stories and really liked them, so I think I'm going to really enjoy this, even though it is Leckie's science fiction and space opera that originally hooked me on her work. But I have quite enjoyed all the short stories I've read by her before. So here is a short synopsis of The Raven Tower. The kingdom of Iridan is protected by the god known as the Raven, whose magic is sustained by blood sacrifice. The port city of Vastai flourishes under the Raven's watch, but then it begins to weaken. A usurper has claimed the throne, and invaders are testing the kingdom's borders. Into this unrest comes the warrior Iolo, who will help the true human ruler of Iridan reclaim the throne and the city. But there is a secret in the Raven's tower. Sounds pretty interesting. Next is Broken Stars, contemporary Chinese science fiction in translation edited by Ken Liu. This is the second anthology by Ken Liu of translated Chinese SFF stories. The first one was called Invisible Planets, and I've read it and thought it was a great collection. It also had some essays in it, and I think that this one will as well. I looked at the table of contents and already recognized quite a few of the names in this anthology. People like Xia Jia, Bao Shu, Hao Jingfang, Liu Cixin, and Chen Chufan, but there are others that I didn't recognize and will probably be their first publications in English. So I'm really looking forward to this, and it's always great to see more translated science fiction and fantasy. And lastly, in February, there is The Haunting of Tramcar 15 by P. Djeli Clark. This is his new novella, and I haven't read it yet, but I do have this arc, so I will read the back of it. This is set in the same Cairo and like an alternate history, fantasy, or steampunk version of the world as his novelette A Dead Gen in Cairo, which I really enjoyed, mainly for its world building. So, Cairo 1912. The case started simply enough for the Ministry of Alchemy, Enchantments, and Supernatural Entities. Handle a possessed tram car. Soon, however, Agent Hamid Nasra and his new partner, Agent Onsi Youssef, are exposed to a new side of Cairo stirring with suffragettes, secret societies, and sentient automatons. It's a race against time to protect the city from an encroaching danger that crosses the line between the magical and the mundane. I think that sounds really good. March is going to be a bumper crop of new releases. I swear every book is being released on either March 19th or March 26th, so yeah, a lot of good things coming out then. The first is Ancestral Night by Elizabeth Bear. This is the first book in a new science fiction series from Bear, and it was originally announced some years ago. I think I even listed it on an upcoming releases list in 2015 or 2016. It's been a while, but it appears it is now actually finally coming out, and it sounds really interesting. So the story is about two salvage operators living just inside the law, usually, who pilot their ship into the scars left by the unsuccessful white transitions, searching for the relics of lost human and alien vessels. But when they make a shocking discovery about an alien species that has been long thought dead, it may be the thing that could tip the perilous peace mankind has found into full-out war. So, relics of the past, alien species, brewing war, this is my kind of thing. Next up is the eagerly awaited follow-up to Zen Cho's Sorcerer to the Crown. I think this is going to be maybe a loose sequel, and it's called The True Queen. And the description sounds like it goes to a very different place and then back to England again. When sisters Muna and Sakti wake up on the peaceful beach of an island, they can't remember anything except that they are bound as only sisters can be. They have been cursed by an unknown enchanter, and slowly Sakti starts to fade away. The only hope of saving her is to go to distant Britain, where the Sorceress Royal has established an academy to train women in magic. Next is Luna Moon Rising by Ian McDonald. This is the third and final book in his Luna series about 5 families warring for control over the moon. I believe this was originally kind of described as The Godfather in space. It's brutal politics on the moon. And this one seems to be the finale. It's the final battle between the families, and will the Cortas family come out on top or not? We will see. I have to admit, I still haven't read the second book, bad on me, but I will get to it soon and be ready for the last one. The Return of the Thief by Megan Whalen Turner. This is probably the most emotional book on this list for me because it is the long awaited conclusion to the Queen's Thief series, which began with The Thief well over 20 years ago. I have a huge emotional attachment to this series, especially the first 2 books. I have this thing for the main character, Eugenides. And this is the last book, what all of them have been building up towards. And I hope that given the title of this one, The Return of the Thief, it will be the return of Eugenides the Thief as a main character and point of view character. He's my favorite thing about this series. Yes, and that would be pretty much my dream come true if we get his point of view again. He's such a fascinating character. We will see. I'll probably have to reread the entire series in 2019 just to relive all the memories and be ready for this final book. Then there is The Light Brigade by Kameron Hurley. I originally thought that this was a short story collection because I've read the short story of the same name, but actually it seems to be a novel and perhaps an expansion of that story, which was really good. So this is about soldiers fighting a war against Mars, and they are broken down into light to travel to and from interplanetary battlefronts. And this experience changes them permanently, it seems. Dietz, a fresh recruit in the infantry, begins to experience combat drops that don't sync up with the platoons. And Dietz's bad drops tell a story of the war that's not at all what the corporate brass want these soldiers to think is going on. And I imagine this will be as brutal as only Hurley can be. Next is Miranda and Milan by Katharine Duckett. I've already read this arc and I very much enjoyed it. This is a continuation of The Tempest by William Shakespeare. It picks up where Prospero and his daughter Miranda return to Milan from the island where they have been exiled for many years. But when they come to Milan, it is not the homecoming that Miranda expected. Her father is not a nice man or a good man. Miranda's correspondence with the man she is engaged to is being intercepted. People are not allowed to see her face, and she begins to wonder what actually happened to her mother and whether her mother is even alive or dead. This also was a bit of a lesbian romance, which was a nice touch, and I found it a bit darker and creepier than I expected at first, but it was beautifully written. No surprise to anybody, the next Expanse novel by James S. A. Corey is also on my list. The penultimate one, number 8 out of 9, I believe, is Tiamat's Wrath. I don't want to say too much about this for fear of spoiling any of the previous events for the people who are reading the books or watching the television show, but things have gone in a very tough and dark direction in the final third of the series, and I think the last arc of the series is going to be great. And the last book on my list is A Memory Called Empire by Arkady Martine. I know Martine's name from reading short stories, but I think this is her debut novel, and I was hooked from the beginning with that title. It just intrigues me so much. So here is the publisher's description. There are some names in this that I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce, so I apologize in advance if I butcher them. Ambassador Mahit Dzmer arrives in the center of the multi-system Teshkalanli Empire only to discover that her predecessor, the previous ambassador from their small but fiercely independent mining station, has died. But no one will admit that his death wasn't an accident, or that Mahit might be next to die, during a time of political instability in the highest echelons of the imperial court. Now, Mahit must discover who is behind the murder, rescue herself, and save her station from Teshkalan's unceasing expansion. I'm not sure why, but I'm getting serious Rach Empire vibes from this description, so if it is at all reminiscent of Ann Leckie's space opera like Ancillary Justice, that is only a good thing in my opinion. I want more like that. Even if it's nothing like Ann Leckie's books, I think I will still really enjoy this. It is probably one of my most anticipated books of all of 2019. Because this is going to be a long video anyway, I thought I would just insert a bit here of a quick list of the other books that are coming out in the first quarter of the year that I have my eye on, but didn't quite make the cut for this list. So there is The Beatrix Gates by Rachel Pollack. This is one of the Outspoken Authors mini collections from PM Press. In an Absent Dream by Seanan McGuire, which is the 4th novella in her Wayward Children series. The Bird King by G. Willow Wilson, which is her first novel in some years since she published Aleph the Unseen. The Rosewater Insurrection by Tade Thompson, which is the sequel to Rosewater. I haven't read it yet, but I've heard nothing but great things about it. New Sons, original speculative fiction by people of color by Nisi, which just sounds like a brilliant idea. Permafrost by Alistair Reynolds. I think this is one of the Tor.com novellas. And then Sooner or Later, Everything Falls into the Sea by Sarah Pinsker, which is her short story collection. I think it's coming out from Small Beer Press, and they do excellent work, so I'll probably look into this one as well. 2019 is already shaping up to be a great year for book releases, so I am very excited. So I hope this list was helpful to you in some way. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back to talk to you again soon, and until then, bye.